Oregon. The parents of the accused gunman are now on the run. Authorities, including the FBI and U.S. Marshals, are asking for the public's help in finding James and Jennifer Crumbley. Earlier today, they were formally charged with involuntary manslaughter, but they did not show up for their 4 o'clock arraignment. The Crumbley's attorney recently issued this statement. On Thursday night, we contacted the Oakland County prosecutor to discuss this matter and to advise her that James and Jennifer Crumbley would be turning themselves in to be arraigned. Instead of communicating with us, the prosecutor held a press conference to announce charges. The Crumbleys left town on the night of the tragic shooting for their own safety. They are returning to the area to be arraigned. They are not fleeing from law enforcement, despite recent comments in media reports. Still with me, former criminal defense attorney Kirk Nurmi. Kirk, I was reading that statement, and one of the things that I thought about was the order of events. It says that they left town the night of the shootings, that they were going to bring themselves back for arraignment, turn themselves in, but once it was announced by the prosecutor publicly, they didn't do that. I'm having a hard time putting it together.
As am I, Ashley. I don't understand. It would make sense if they felt like they needed to leave town because they felt like they were threatened after this tragic event. That makes sense. But the rest of the attorney's statement, I struggle trying to understand it exactly. They know they're going to get these charges. They know they should be coming back in town. Her press conference doesn't alter that reality, nor does it alter the reality that they're said to be arraigned and they are now fugitives.
I want to talk about a little bit of the other side of the story, and I'm not sure if we have a full screen of it or not, but Sheriff's Office also released a statement, and one of the things it says was that the detectives say that the attorney saying they represented the parents did contact them, and that the attorney said, after repeated attempts by phone and text, they were not successful in reaching the parents. And so I always think, Kirk, about the reality of having a client that you represent. And when you represent them, you zealously advocate for their position. But the reality is, as an attorney, if you cannot contact, cannot locate, cannot talk to your client, then you're stuck sometimes not being able to do anything because you don't have their input to make a decision to actually represent them. I'm wondering if that might have happened. I don't know. We're looking at trying to read the tea leaves, but it does seem like there's some moving pieces here that may not make sense yet.
Yeah, one of the other limitations about being an attorney, right, is we can advise, but we can't control. So we could have all this communication, advise our clients what the right thing to do is, but they don't have to do it. And that could mean, for them, that could mean cutting off communication to their lawyer, just deciding they don't want to deal with it. Their lawyer's wrong. The police are wrong. Maybe they're feeling like victims of all this. Who knows what's going through their mind? But yes, they cut off that communication. And that makes a lawyer, the reason they hired a lawyer, completely ineffective in order to help them facilitate. And that's why we get the sort of things we do, and probably a brutal arrest for them coming up.
And we know from the press conference by the district attorney that was held earlier today that she read some texts and things and indicated that the gun was purchased for the 15-year-old and was given to the 15-year-old. And I want to just talk a little bit then about the difference between manslaughter charges, voluntary and involuntary. And I think the reason they've likely been charged with the involuntary is because there doesn't have to be intent. It can be unintentional. However, they created a situation where the risk of great bodily harm or death was very high. And I'm assuming, but I don't want to do that, so I want all your expertise, that the prosecutor is probably thinking in this case, they may not have intended for their son to go shoot up a school and kill people, but the steps that they took, the position of the state were enough to have created a risk that they should be charged with the involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think it might have to do with more with the steps that they didn't take, right? When we heard that press conference this afternoon, the prosecutor outlined the trouble he was having at school, the issues he was raising, the search for ammunition that his teacher caught him on, issues that were brought up to the school, and a text message from his mother telling him not to do it. All those things add up to the fact that they knew that their son was on the brink of doing something. At the same time, not securing their weapons, buying him a gun for Christmas, and just nonchalantly mentioning that online. So I think that shows a lot of negligence on their part, a lot of naivete on their part, and that's what motivated the prosecutor and ultimately charge his parents.
Yeah, and there's so many red flags, and there's so many kinds of help available. And, it's kind of the perfect storm. There were so many, I can promise, having done this my whole career, there were so many opportunities for someone to do something different or to report, and this could have been prevented. And I think the lesson going forward, whether there are charges or not, whether there's a conviction or not, we know these parents are presumed innocent. They've been charged, but that's it at this point. And I think the reality, Kirk, is there's so many opportunities for people to step in and take action, to report, to do something, to get help, that this can ultimately be prevented from occurring.
Well, you're right, Ashley. There had to be signs probably for months, if not years prior to this, that some sort of intervention was needed. And as we were talking earlier, the prosecutor laid out the sort of things that came up in the immediate uh, preceding days to this tragedy, right? So there was all kinds of opportunities for intervention. And the good thing about this case is that this might hasten people, this might increase their vigilance to do something. Because these parents in this case were completely negligent, completely uncaring about the consequences, seemingly. And I think that's bolstered, my opinion is bolstered by the fact that they're on the run now, because they don't want to take any responsibility for this and the part they played in it.
It's such a tragic always situation. But I want to talk a little bit about, we were talking about signs, red flags. Let's talk now and listen together to the sheriff who was speaking to CNN about what had happened with this 15-year-old at school prior to the shooting.
On the day prior to the tragedy, a teacher in a classroom where he was a student saw and heard something that she felt was disturbing in terms of his behavior, and they had a counseling session about it with school officials, and a phone call was left with the parents. The day of the shooting, a different teacher in a different classroom saw some behavior that they felt was concerning, and they brought the child down to an office, had a meeting with school officials, called in the parents, and ultimately it was determined that he could go back into class. And so that's obviously part of our investigation. We were never informed of either meeting prior to the shooting or that there were any concerns about behavior.
And do you think, Kirk, this is the reason why you hear about in some areas all over the nation, schools have resorted to metal detectors and searches before kids even get to enter their schools?
Sure, because we just heard the sheriff outline all these red flags that are huge red flags that really should not have been ignored. So ultimately, if we're going to get to the point where we ignore some of these red flags, then alternative measures have to be taken that unfortunately seem inappropriate for a school setting. But if it helps prevent tragedies like this, then it becomes completely appropriate to have metal detectors or dogs that can sniff out weapons, those sort of things. Because anything we can do to avoid tragedies like this must be done. We owe that to our children.
Yeah, absolutely agree. You send them to school innocently, thinking they're fine. Of all places to get their education, they can go to school, and then this happens. I want to point out that this that we're watching now is live, a memorial that people have been adding things to. You see balloons and flowers and individuals standing there. You can see the sign. This is at Oxford High School, and you can see that sign in the background, kind of a pop-up memorial, so to speak, and all of these things being left. And it's, again, a senseless school shooting. We have one yet again, and I just hope in my heart that these families find some peace. I don't know how. It's hard to imagine. 4 families whose children were killed, and the alleged shooter, Crumbley, is in jail at this time. We have 16-year-old Tate Meyer, 17-year-old Madison Baldwin, 14-year-old Hannah St. Juliana, and 17-year-old Justin Schilling. And I just got chills because, Kirk, in all of these cases, you see these pictures of these beautiful young people, and they're always smiling. They're always smiling and happy. So, all right, we have to keep in mind how fresh this deadly incident is in the hearts and minds of the students at Oxford High School. Our affiliate WXYZ has more on the vigil, which was held last night.
Well, just moments later, he took his last breath in the police car, and then we lost Tate Muir.
The pain of loss being felt across Metro Detroit, including here at Lawrence Tech University, where some students like Brian Gaba are Oxford High alum, having played football with one of the victims, Tate Muir.
Home is where the heart is, even if our heart is breaking. And I know mine is broken right now.
Brian was in class at Lawrence Tech when he learned of the shooting at his former high school. In the days that followed, he and the university painted the rock and put together a vigil, bringing together students also in pain.
It's just crazy because people always say it's never going to happen to them, and the fact that it happened to two people that I really care about, it's just really hard, and I just wanted to come out here and support them.
The support bringing roughly 100 students together under candlelight. Some with no connection to Oxford wanted to do something.
I know there wasn't a whole lot I can do, but just being out here to support and honor the victims is really all I could do.
The candles left behind, but the pain still lingers. For students here today, the event showed support for the 4 victims and their families and hope for a better future.
Whether you knew him or not, whether you knew any of the students or not, the fact that we were able to come together, that gives me hope for the future because things have to change. They can't keep on continuing the way they are.